Evening, everyone. Welcome to the CME of South Delhi Pediatric Study Group. The topic for today is tackling childhood obesity. Can front of packaging labeling help? And we have with us Dr. Rekha Harish ma'am as our speaker. The session shall be chaired by Dr. Anju Virmani. Ma'am is a pediatric endocrinologist in South Delhi. I would request Dr. Anju ma'am to kindly introduce the speaker.
Thanks, Sankalp. It's a real honor to be able to moderate a session which is being conducted by Dr. Rekha Harish because she's got a completely awesome set of qualifications. She was in Government Medical College Jammu where she changed the face of the department. She's been vice president of Central IIP. She has so many Women Achiever Awards that it's not funny. And now the latest feather in her cap after these huge fights with the food industry about front of package labeling is that she has set up the chapter for prevention of non-communicable diseases. That is really the primary problem facing society today. COVID as an infection has taught us that even infections bring back NCD in a big way. And what is awesome about the NCD Prevention Academy is that it has decided not to take any drug sponsors to raise funds in every way except through drug companies and food companies. So, Dr. Rekha Harish, real privilege to have you. Welcome, ma'am. And I think all of us would be really benefited by your talk.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the kind words. I hope I deserve them actually. And real pleasure to be amongst the elite group of pediatricians of the country. The group being headed by Dr. Poonam, run by Dr. Sankalp, and helped by so many super specialists and especially pediatric endocrinologists who are already sensitized and are actually my teachers in this topic. I am happy to share with you some thoughts of mine which I'm still experimenting with and trying to build up a case in favor of children of our country. So please feel free to advise me, guide me, criticize, and if possible, join me in this endeavor for saving the nation's future. The slides are not moving. Childhood obesity has taken a huge rise, alarming rise. There has been a tenfold increase in childhood and adolescent obesity in the last 4 decades. Worldwide, overall obesity has tripled from 1975 to 2016. And the WHO Commission on Childhood Obesity states alarming figures of under 5 childhood obesity, which was 31 million in 1990, increased to 41 million and is now being projected to be 70 million by 2025. And the rate of rise of childhood obesity is more than 30% higher in the developing countries as compared to the West. And the most shocking figures from our country ourselves have been revealed by the Comprehensive National Nutrition Survey, which was the first of its kind conducted by the Union Ministry of Health and Family Welfare from 2016 to 2018. It involved measuring heights and weights of as many as 1.12 lakh children less than 19 years old, and half of them they had given their biological samples. And see the figures of overweight and obesity as compared to the rest of the world. We are not different. We are having the similar rising trend as is being observed in other developing countries. Our overall overweight and obesity is 3.7%, and in our various states, Goa, Nagaland, and Tripura, and Sikkim, they are heading towards higher rates. And the similar trends, as was shown in the previous slide, of 5 to 9 years have been increasing to adolescent age group, where the overweight and obesity is roughly around 5%. The prevalence of overweight and obesity, which were more than 4% and 1% in children 5 to 9 years of age, and maximum in Goa and Nagaland, where they are around 15%. In adolescent age group, the prevalence between 5 to 9 years was 5% and 1% respectively amongst girls and boys. Overweight prevalence was nearly 5% at the age of 5 years, with a rapid rise to the peak of 10% at the age of 10 years for boys and 8%, which was slightly slower for girls, till the age of 12 years. And following this peak rise, there was some decline observed till 18 years of age, after which there is again increase in the prevalence of obesity. And the states with highest prevalence of overweight and obesity in adolescents, where the figures are more than 12%, include Delhi also. And we know that the roots of adult obesity, they lie in early childhood. This is the largest and the longest tracking of obesity during childhood, from the age of 5 years in the kindergarten school till the 8th standard. And it was observed that the out of the severely obese children in the kindergarten standard, they 75 to 80% remained obese in the 8th standard, while the mildly obese were remained, almost half of them, they remained obese in the 8th standard. The key findings in non-communicable diseases from the CNNS survey include that 1 in 10 of the school-age children and adolescents were pre-diabetic, and 1% of them were already diabetic. 3% of the school-age children and 4% of the adolescents had high cholesterol levels. Nearly 26% of the school-age children and 28% of adolescents, they had low HDL. 1/3 of these children had high triglycerides. 7% already were at the risk of chronic kidney disease, and 5% of the adolescent children were already hypertensive. And COVID, as ma'am has already reflected, it has multiplied the things to worser limits, and there has been a worldwide increase in obesity rates, and the most affected age group is 5 to 9 years. There is evidence of documented increase of obesity of 1% in 13 to 17 years old, and 2.6% in 5 to 9 years of age group. The risk factors for NCDs are many, but the modifiable ones which have been kept as priority by WHO include unhealthy diet, physical inactivity, air pollution, tobacco, and harmful use of alcohol. When we talk of unhealthy eating, there are 3 components: quality, quantity, and our eating behaviors. And recently, as you're already aware, that the IAP has declared the mnemonic of JUNCS, JUNCS, instead of junk food, where J includes junk, which is high in fat, sugar, and salts. U stands for ultra-processed food. N for nutritionally inappropriate. It may be a home cooked food which has been cooked inappropriately. C includes caffeinated, carbonated, or colored drinks. And S stands for sugar sweetened beverages. This is based on the NOVA food classifications, where the foods have been classified into 4 groups. First is the unprocessed, then these processed culinary ingredients. Third is the processed food. But Group 4, which is the ultra-processed food, is the most commonly available these days. It comprises of substances which are derived from food, and the end product in the which lands up in the hands of the consumers has little, if any, intact food, because it has been designed to be durable, to be omnipresent, and very tasty, and carries a highly profitable business. And it is treated with chemicals, additives, preservatives, and so many chemical reactions that none of them are healthy for us. and see the trends in the sales of ultra processed foods, see the trends in the sales of sugar sweetened beverages. They are rising as much as the prevalence of obesity and NCDs are rising. And the food industry is 24/7 in search of permanent, loyal clients, which are lying in their cradles and they are unable to even sit or stand from that age group till they land up in the grave. And this is the prevalence of fast food consumption in Indian children. This is documented. Almost 95% of these children had one or the other form in the previous 24 hours. The rapid increases in UPF consumption in India, though low per capita, but they are high per user. And US has already got some evidence that they add average 500 calories per day with only consumption of ultra processed foods. And this amounts to adding 1 kg in 2 weeks. And there is a myriad of diseases which follows, which are grouped collectively under the group of non-communicable diseases. And there is sufficient evidence for them to be associated not only with obesity, but all forms of its complications, hypertension, cardiovascular diseases, dyslipidemia, metabolic syndrome, heart attacks, even cancers. Therefore, once we are talking of food labeling, and it is being now realized as an important public health tool in an attempt to promote balanced diet by enhancing public health awareness. It assists in understanding the nutrition value and to compare the nutrition value of any other similar product. The pack of any food contains two sides. One is the front and then the other is the back of pack. The back of pack contains all the details of the information, but they are written in such small fonts inside the folds. And I'm sure none of us has ever read the back of pack of any of the food products which we have bought. While front of pack labels are basically for the consumer, and ideally both should complement each other. The primary purpose of the front of pack should be to well inform the consumers so that they are able to make an informed choice, while the back of pack information is more suited for the compliance and the enforcement of the regulations. So FOPL, or the front of pack labeling, can be an effective strategy to promote healthy diets. And there is scientific evidence which is there, which has identified it as one of the strategies to address to the growing problem and concern of unhealthy dietary pattern. Of course, it requires proper and clear nutrient selections. It requires reference values, especially not only for the human beings, adults, I think for the children also, and according to the serving sizes, which is the most dubious or the most gray zone in food labeling. Then it comprises of designing the label, which is easy to understand, gives an interpretation immediately, so that the person or the consumer doesn't have to think for minutes or calculate anything while buying the food product in a shopping mall, and should have a consistent, transparent pattern which is uniformly applicable to all the food products. So FOPL can operate through two pathways. Not only it will change the consumer behavior of buying what to buy, it will also help, or it will also promote reformulation by the food industry. An ideal FOP's labeling system should be aligned with the national public health policy, should be based on transparent and easily accessible principles, should be interpreted based on symbols, colors, or quantifiable elements, should have an easy to understand design, and the nutritional criteria chosen should enable the reader for an easy interpretation, should assist in informed choices against the risk of diet-related NCDs, and provide appropriate comparisons. Of course, it should be consumer-friendly. not only for literates, it should be there for illiterates equally, should cover all the language barriers. Even a child should be able to pick up that this is unhealthy or healthy, ideal, and should be quick assessment tool with exact and concise, small, but clear information. So first component arises, which nutrients should be highlighted on the front of pack. Trans fats in general will not be there on FOPs in our country, as they have been adequately dealt by the FSSAI, which has been regulating its upper limits and has been reducing the upper limits with time again. And by the time the FOP will be implemented in our country, trans fat will not be there in the foods, processed foods. So basically the issue revolves around salt, sugar, fats, trans fats, and the energy derived from that product. There is confusion regarding whether sodium should be there on the label or the salt. After going through the process, I feel sodium should be a better choice, because there are so many products which are baked and they use sodium besides salt, and the sodium in any form is going to lead to hypertension. Then whether there should be added sugar or total sugar written on the pack, added sugar, writing only added sugar will obviously ignore the inherent sugar present in that product. And when it comes to a consumer, he is only concerned by the total sugar. A diabetic has the right to know the total sugar. So we decided to keep the total sugar in the pack. Then the saturated fat, as limited by the NIN guidelines, we permit less than 10% of the daily energy intake. Then the calories as per this thing, and the total fats around 20 to 30% of the daily energy requirement. And this is how basically, this is what I've gathered from WHO CRO guidelines, that how the front of pack labeling is dealt with almost in all of the countries in the world. The daily energy requirement is approximately kept at rounded at the 2000 calories. And this caters to 10 to 11 years old children and adults. Out of this 2000 calories, 25% of the calories are entitled to each meals, including 3 meals in a day, and 10 to 12% for 2 snacks in a day. Therefore, the threshold, they have been calculated on the basis that each 100 gram of product, it provides around 230 calories, 200 calories, and the sodium or is proportionate to the energy content in such a way that 1 milliequivalent for 1 calorie. So the maximum RDA derived of sodium is 2000 milligrams per day. And the sugar thresholds, WHO earlier said that they should not be higher than 10% of the total energy requirement, but they have suggested a lower threshold of 5%, and 5% is the better accepted and should be rather be the cutoff tool which we want to implement. The total fat is considered excessive if the energy amount amounts to more than 30% of the total energy requirement. So my concern here is that if we are implementing the cutoffs on the basis of 2000 calories, and our children as small as 5 years or even toddlers, they are consuming these products, they are growing up in an obesogenic junkie environment, where instead of any complementary feeding, they are given biscuits and they are given so many processed foods right from the age of 6 months, what to talk of later on. How can an adult who's buying a product which is green, labeled as green, and assumes that it is healthy for me, so it is healthy for my child also, and overfeeds the same product to his children. Then a lot of the efforts which are put in the labeling process, they are undermined by the false media claims, the misleading labels and misleading claims, the tags of healthy, real, natural, active, energy, and the taglines that your child will become brilliant, will become tall, he'll be the winner of a race. The media personalities demonstrating their six-pack abs while holding a bottle of SSB, and jumping miles and buildings for one 10 rupee bottle of a cold drink. It gives a wrong message to our small children, and anybody in our country can wear a white apron and start recommending anything. The FOPL policies have been announced in most of the countries in the world, and they have been implemented in our neighborhood also, in Sri Lanka and Indonesia and Iran. They have been announced in these countries, and India falls in this, and the FOPL will be there soon. And this is the list of the governments who have implemented voluntary food labeling. Now, what are the various types of FOPL systems? They can be nutrient specific, yet non-interpretive. This is the example of that. There can be nutrient specific, yet interpretive. They can be summative and interpretive. They can be summative and graded. They have actually evolved over a period of many years, and these were the first labels which were used in the front of pack. They were rather endorsement logos, and they were summative and interpretive, that this is a healthier choice and this is a healthy choice. This is the way you can choose the foods. But they do not provide any information about the specific nutrients of concern. They provide a directive overall assessment, and they encourage the consumers to probably overestimate the healthfulness, and they may act as health claims for processed foods. So they have been almost left by now. Then the nutrient specific labeling came, which was non-interpretive. This is the nutrient specific, where this part is the per serve, and these are the components of nutrients which are mentioned, and this is the percentage of contribution made per serve for the daily as per the daily recommended allowance. They are complex numbers. They are difficult to understand. Even majority of us do not go into these details. We just buy the product on the basis of ads. They are often monochrome. There is no direction to judge or decide which way to go. They are often therefore favored by the food industry, as it helps them more, and the consumer is often misled or maybe even confused what to do, whether you should buy or not. And then nobody bothers about the serving size which is mentioned on the label, because serving size is one component of the food labeling which is the most misunderstood or poorly understood, and majority of the community doesn't even understand. They don't even know what is serving size, and especially when on a pack of chips it is written 16 chips or 17 chips is the serving size. Who bothers for the counting of chips while having a bag in his hand? And children are watching TV while taking them in bulk. Then came the summative graded ones. This is the summative graded one. This is the Nutri-Score. It was applied in UK, where a set of positive or nutrients was taken, and the harmful nutrients was taken. Then an algebraic sum is made of the the negativity of the harmful nutrients and taken out from the score, and a score is given. While in the PIL for banning junk food in schools, we had gone through the same being applied to all the Indian foods which were available in the Indian market, and the score of all, including all the drinks and all the packages, was absolutely hopeless, and every product was read on that basis. And this is the health star rating. This is the health star rating which was applied by Australia and New Zealand in 2014. It does not isolate any specific ingredients. It just provides a rating, a score of a product, which may be high if the product has negative nutrients, but if you add some healthy nutrient in the this thing, so you can improve the star rating. Such labels though may help pick up a better option amongst any given brands, but they do not discourage the consumption of foods high in fat and sugar and salt. For example, if a chocolate or a candy industry decides to put a piece of almond in it, in the chocolate, or any nuts in the chocolate, the star rating will improve despite the fact that the product is very high in sugar. Then came the interpretive, nutrient specific, traffic light based system. This was the system which I was also a part of it, and we had suggested at that time in the Delhi High Court also to have a traffic light based system. It does give a message of the particular nutrient, whether it is in the healthy limit or in the unhealthy limit, and there is a range of limits in between the two, which is amber colored. So this, when you apply it to any product, you can have one red, you can have two reds, and any number of, and all the three colors simultaneously present this thing. So it does give, but it gives an unclear, or it can give a mixed message, and ultimately a person who is buying a product, he is comparing the two products while in a shop or in a mall, he will just see the number of reds, he might be confused what to do. So they are complex numbers, and if the limits also, they have to be fixed in two categories. One, you give the cutoff for the red label, and then you give the cutoff for the orange label. It is a huge task to give at least one cutoff of red label in all the food products. It's a huge task, and you require the testing facility also for such an extensive exercise. Sri Lanka did apply this traffic light based color coding food labeling, and they first applied to the sugar sweetened beverages, and these were the cutoffs. So see the cutoffs: less than 2 grams, and from 2 to 11 grams per 100 ml, and more than 11 grams per 100 ml was taken as red. Then what were the effects? They did find a positive effect, that there was reduction of sugar levels in many beverages within a short period of time. There was raised awareness, and industry took new initiatives. But what initiatives? They had to give the same sweetness, so they used more of artificial sweetness, and they started using green logo for sugar-free products. So this was the way the things boomerang on them. Then they also applied for the snacks and whatever ultra processed foods were available. See the range of in the amber group, 5 grams to 22 grams per 100 grams. This limit itself is so excessive, and you can see the products, how they were still labeled as red and green and amber. What were their experience? There was marked consumer awareness. It was a useful tool for health professionals, led to reformulation of many products, and it is still being used as a regulatory tool to restrict the unhealthy foods in schools and hospitals especially. But the testing and the many packaged foods, unpackaged foods, they still are being missed out, and they are being consumed in large amounts. And there's some scientific evidence of the effect of traffic light based FOPL, how it has reduced the energy content and the requirement, and had led to increase. So there is some documented benefit in the consumer. Then what happened? FSSAI also proposed in 2019 a similar warning label by using the amount of ingredients in the per serve, and part 2 was the percentage of that component in that serve. They are complicated numbers, but they give a mixed message with some red and some non-red blocks, and it's almost a duplication of the information from the front and back. The industry proposed and voluntarily practiced monochrome labeling because they know the consumer is in a difficult situation if they are monochrome. So Mexico tried this, but it did not probably work, and they shifted to warning labels in 2010. So then came the concept of warning labels. So warning labels, basically the concept has been derived from the warnings issued on tobacco and alcohol. So the food is similarly addictive, and it was felt that we should be dealing with this addiction similarly. So people must be warned about both the packaged and the fast food through noticeable warning symbol, and it should be written in bold letters clearly in front of the pack, and red was taken as the sign of danger, so it was chosen by some countries that way. Then it was easy to notice, very easy to interpret, helps the consumer to identify unhealthy foods immediately, and helps the even illiterate or a person who is unable to read English or it takes care of the language barriers also. So till now, they are the best approach for front of pack labeling. And there have been some evidence also that it has led to major purchasing and reformulation also. So interpretive, nutrient specific warning labels is now in, and the best example, the best country who has used it is Chile, where they have used these interpretive warning labels. There are no numbers, there are only use of colors, they just reflect the warning and for the particular nutrients which is there. Now this is high in calories, this is high in calories, and there some they'll be writing excess. Then Israel applied it in the similar way, and these are the symbols used by them. This is the proposed warning label from Canada, and it will be soon implemented in Canada. So evidence is emerging that negative front of pack labels, such as warning labels, they have a very high chances of positive, providing a positive perception. They outperform the other labeling methods, and they have relatively a greater impact on child's food choices as compared to the traffic light labels. And the issue is only of design. The country has to choose the design. And in Indian context, where we have high degree of illiteracy, and many of our population, common people might not be able to even calculate or the serving size, read, assess their nutritional requirements, and nutritional literacy is a huge concern with it. there it may be working better. This is how Chile has done, and this is how they started labeling that this is excessive in sugar, and this is the label on the front of pack. And then in phases they have brought down with the calorie in a per 100 grams, the sodium per 100 grams, the total sugar, and the saturated fats. See the results. And these are the documented changes in the purchases of high sugar and beverages. See the reduction in the purchases. And Canada's proposed FOP labeling will proposed from 2018 also similarly does it. So WHO, when we talk of this thing front of pack labeling, we ought to have a literate consumer who understands the language, understands the serving size, understands the green label, and should not be able to overconsume beyond his limits, because he should know his permissible daily RDA. He should understand the synonyms used by the food industry for the various ingredients. There are almost 60 terms which are used for sugars, and even a diabetic or a normal medical professional may not be able to decode those names. Understand that sodium is not synonymous with salt, and the limits for sodium is lower. We need to read the labels before buying and again before consuming. Until a similar labeling process is available for non-packaged foods, we should be able to apply the same process and same cutoffs, understanding for non-packaged foods. We should not be carried away by the false media claims and the irresponsible behavior of media personalities. We should be able to, the best would be to avoid all the packaged foods by replacing them with the homemade foods. For a child to understand, if we are implementing FOPL on the based on the serving size, then the serving size has to be defined according to the type of the pack. My saying is that if we are worldwide, we are using the 100 ml or 100 grams for labeling. But if you're having a pack of 200 ml or 200, like you have various drinks which are available in the market, so the person reads that pack, and the labeling is done for 100 grams, and it's written 11 grams of sugar, when actually it is having 22 grams. And nobody stops after taking 100 ml. Nobody knows when to stop. He will consume my plea is that for the single use small packs, the serving, which are often consumed in single go, the total amount of the sugar should be written in this thing. And of course, the community needs to be aware of the fact and needs to be educated for the fact for that green label doesn't mean that you go on consuming in unlimited amounts. And this is a very simple exercise. This is the common meal which is ordered by a child, and we know it takes supplies almost the calories which are required in a day, much more fat which was required by a day in a child, by the child. The saturated fats are double, and the sugars are almost 4 or 5 times, and doesn't provide much fiber also. But when we tell these numbers to a child, it doesn't make sense, and half of them will forget them within 5 minutes. So what we can tell them basically is that for 4.5 hours or 8.5 hours of walk. And to save childhood, there is urgent need for simple, clear, informative warning label, which is easy to understand, helps in logical decision, and quickly. The Chile has given an example, and where children have stopped buying these products because they have even stopped their mothers and parents from buying the product by saying that this product has 2 black labels, you should not buy it. And my teacher will also not allow me in school. So the ultimate goal is to, by multiple approaches, to change both the supply as well as the demand of ultra processed foods. So we need to be more cautious. Still, food labeling is actually implemented in our country. We need to read the food labels before buying any packaged food, along with the serving size. We need to know our daily upper limit. The food labels are based on adolescent and adult intakes. They do not apply to less than 10 years. And natural will never be advertised. Whatever is being advertised needs to be criticized. Overconsumption of foods labeled as healthy also causes obesity. This message should go on. We need to ensure every baby gets no junk from birth onwards. They are not put on top feeding, which is the first junk, and the second junk is the tinned complementary feeds which are available on the food store. The child should be eating from the family pot itself, and the home-based complementary feeding should be our target from 6 months old onwards. And children, they learn from the environment. So if everybody around the child follows the principles of healthy lifestyle, the children are also likely to follow the same. Thank you.
Thank you for an absolutely brilliant talk, ma'am. As always, it's very informative. Uh, there's nothing in the chat box. Is there any live questions?
I have
Can you
one
see
question,
anything?
ma'am. Are we working on any front as to write down the number of calories of all the street food that we eat? Say we go to Haldiram and we order a chole bhature. So when they have that picture, there should be the number of calories written as well.
Ma'am, the packaged foods are the first target for the FSSAI right now, and it's a very, very huge and extensive exercise. It's a very huge and extensive exercise which is being still carried out. There is one group which is deciding the thresholds, other group which is deciding the designing, other, and it's a very huge exercise, ma'am. Saying that WHO CRO guidelines can be taken as ready reference, it's not possible, because many of the articles which are available in our country, they are not there in the list, or WHO might not have even touched that area. And then the cutoffs to be decided for a normal this thing, snack or a milk or any product which is there, is different from that of the category of desserts. There's a category of vegetables and fruits, juices. Now, one hand you might have the bitter gourd, and the other hand you have mango. So there is no uniformly applicable. It's a very huge and very complicated exercise, and needs hefty calculations, implementation, and then rational. While we are changing the limits, there is a strong support from the consumer, but there is equal and much more opposition from the food industry. So it's like the FSSAI has to work in a very balanced way, and it's a very huge exercise which they are doing. They haven't touched the non-packaged food, which is obviously a very huge issue. And the first thing would be to correct ourselves. I believe in that principle. And if we are able to limit the calorie intake of what we are consuming in our conferences, in our parties, we will be setting an example for other people also. So I would rather propose that we first work on ourselves and try to limit our calorie and trans fat intake during our conferences, where we are almost all of us are taking junk.
Yatha Raja Tatha Pradar. Ma'am, a very pointed question. What about all these health drinks that children love to drink, Milo and so on?
Ma'am, I categorize them into the category of sugar sweetened beverages, and this is what I've been shouting in CSE also. In their they have a food conclave. In 2015, I have first raised this voice. Please include these drinks, the health drinks, in the category of sugar sweetened beverages, just on the basis of the amount of sugar which is there in it, and the misinformation which is carried along with these is the false media claims, the false claims that your child will win a race or child will grow tall and he'll grow faster if you take it. Why not? Because he is becoming obese, and exogenous obesity is they are taller and they are fatter, and then but they are also pre-diabetic within a few months because of the amount of highest amount of sugar which is going on. And I just this was last week only, I asked my residents that you are behaving like small children. I just giving you citing you an example. Seems like you are taking a health drink along with milk and coming. How many of you are taking? And out of four, three said yes. And they were surprised to know the amount of sugar in their health drink. They had never read it. We are not never in the habit of reading the labels and then assessing them according to the serving size which we are taking. So we have to start the awareness right from our own area, department, hospital, school, whosoever comes in our contact. And once the children learn this habit, they can be our ambassadors for their families, and they often correct their parents and even grandparents if they are well sensitized. So this is a kind of generation we need to, the kind of change we need to make in our group and our contacts and our all those who come in under our influence, including children.
So, ma'am, Pediasure, Milo, all these health drinks, Yakult, ma'am, huge amount of sugar. So you would say that no pediatrician should prescribe these things essentially.
I would request all the pediatricians to please read the label, and if you can take it yourself, please prescribe.
Ma'am, there was a
Thank
question.
you.
What is 5210?
5210 stands for consumption of 5 different cups of or 5 different colors of 5 portions or 5 cups of various fruits and vegetables in a day. 2 stands for limiting our screen time to 2 hours a day. 1 stands for having moderate vigorous exercise for 1 hour every day, and 0 stands for saying no to all the sugar sweetened beverages.
Good evening, ma'am. Thank you for such a nice talk and such a very good topic. Actually, I wanted to ask that I literally had a fight with my wife regarding regarding the chocos, which usually we give to our children in the morning meal. So, what about the chocos and all those corn flakes and other things?
Sir, please read that label of chocos. You'll get the answer there only.
That is, I had to bang my head again to say that this is not a healthy thing. But actually the thing is, in India, the problem is that we consider this fat children as healthy. So
Yes.
we don't know the difference between the healthy and fat, the obesity
Yes.
and healthy. We don't know the difference. The first thing I want to say that we have to actually educate the people about that fat is not being actually healthy.
Yes. Sir, the moment we start telling a family that your child needs help for being having excessive weight, the first reaction, especially in North India, is that hum to khate peete ghar ke hain. And especially when the all of the family members, they are obese, they don't look different from each other. They are unable to make out that difference, and it becomes very difficult to treat them, because then the whole family needs counseling, and the three generations have to be brought together to say, to convince them that they all of them are obese and they need, because it's more of a de-addiction program. It's just like a de-addiction. They are addicted to food, the sugar, salt, and fats. They are the three strong addictive agents and work like addiction. So we have to work on the same principle of de-addiction and go on counseling them. And since it's a time-consuming process, and the has to be done in a non-blaming and non-judgmental way, it requires a lot of patience, a lot of answering to the queries which the families will raise, and the family which is tuned to celebrating each birthday, each day, whenever the parents come, they'll bring in a chocolate because they have not been with the child. They feel guilty, so they want to bring something for the child. The grandparents, they are always there to bribe these children, rather reward these children with any of the sugary products. And then there are so many birthdays, so many celebrations, and none of the celebration is without junk. That is the issue. Any celebration, our concept is that we have to have a sweet in one or the other form. That concept, that behavior, that habits, the habit of our family having lots and lots of milk, and then the school canteen and the store food canteen in the community is not different from what is our refrigerators are. The same products are in ample amounts in the store, and the same products are available at home and kept stored inside the refrigerator or the almirahs. If there is only fruits and vegetables, fruits around, and healthy options around, the child will consume that. If the family is also taking the same, the child will also learn the same thing. So it's about the changing the environment entirely, because this child was not born obese. He was not born to be obese. He is a victim of the three environments: the home, the school, and the community. And these three agents, three areas have ruined his longevity. They have ruined his health. So we need to tackle all these areas. So it's not that if we get a child with obesity, tackling that child will help. Never. We have to change. We have to sit with the family. We need to counsel the parents, the grandparents, and then change so many things. And once done in an effective way, it works wonders. I've seen children, because childhood obesity is one thing where we are at one advantage. One, that the child is in formative years, and another, that the child is gaining height. So we are not having a target of losing weight. We are having a target of maintaining the weight. And once the child gains weight, gains height, the BMI is likely to fall. So we are at an edge over the adult obesities. We are not tackling, we are not targeting at reduction of weight. We are only targeting at establishment of healthy lifestyle and healthy behaviors, whether they are the eating, they are physical activity, or sleep pattern. So these are the three areas. Once we deal with them, in the corrective measures are taken, there's no need to calculate the calories and make the rough estimates. I have had the experience of treating the many of these overweight children and obesity just by telling them to stop the sugary drinks. And once convinced, they stopped, and the results were remarkable. and then they have that puberty spurt, and immediately the weight also comes within the normal age. So it's not that difficult either. Only thing is we need to understand that what is the difference between childhood obesity and the adult obesity and the approach.
Great, ma'am. So one thing you had proposed right in the end was that we can put up how many miles or kilometers a particular food is. Then that doesn't require any thresholds, ma'am. How does it matter what the food is, as long as we can just say that?
Thresholds will be required for any warning label or any traffic light label. Traffic light label is more complex because it requires 2 thresholds, and giving a simple warning label is again clear that there'll be 1 threshold. But if we talk in terms of labeling, worldwide the labeling has been done, as I said, for the adult values. And if a product is labeled as green based on those adult values, the parents, they assume that it is safe for their children
For the child.
and it is healthy for their children, and they don't read the serving size, they just over consume. So that product will remain ultimately the child has not benefited from that this thing. My plea is that adding this fact on the label, that if you consume this much of chocolate or this much of drink, you will have to run for this many hours. It's acts as a like stopping the person from over consuming it. My plea is that it's
That's
not
what
being
makes, yes, ma'am, that makes a lot of sense, because that doesn't require complicated labeling or anything, just how many kilometers, and that would be across ages, across everything. Of course, it won't cover salt, it won't cover sugar, but just the total calories at least.
besides the other warning symptoms and labels.
Ma'am, I have a question. I know it's this is a much larger issue that we're all addressing here, because a child just does not have the family around, right? Because right now with COVID, but they have a lot of other social circles, that meeting up. How do you keep a child motivated? Because they are not so mature enough. Yeah, can you hear me? Say maybe a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old child. How do we motivate the child? Because up to some time, probably as you might have to run 10 miles, you might have to run 8 miles to work. Not,
The signal is intermittent.
Okay.
But her question was, how do you make sure the child stays motivated?
Stays?
Motivated.
Basically, the child, as I said, he learns from his environment. If you are having the parents, they are busy with their mobiles 18 hours in a day, and we are handing over the mobile to our children. We are not just giving them a way to learn. We are reinforcing that habit every day by demonstrating that habit in front of the children. So same holds true for any factor which you want to motivate in the child. If you want to the child to be physically active, you have to show that this is the way. The parents have to show the way. So if it was COVID, many of the parents, they engaged in dancing along with their children. The child will also learn the same. So it depends upon the family habits and the family lifestyle attitudes which make the difference. So motivation doesn't come from preaching. Here, preaching doesn't work. It is the practice which works. It's only preaching while practicing, which helps.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, there is one question. Does late night eating increase obesity?
Ma'am, the obesity has been observed in higher percentages in those children who have disturbed sleep pattern. Whether the disturbed sleep pattern is because of prolonged TV viewing or whatever the reason is, if the sleep is fragmented or is less, the children, they are much more prone to be obese because of the disturbance of the hypothalamic and hypophyseal axis. And once the sleep is disturbed, and they are watching media, they are more prone to and they are busy with their mobiles. It's not as simple that only TV is being watched by children. These days, the ads are being pumped to these children through all the apps 24/7. Earlier, the recommendation, UK made a recommendation that we'll stop food advertising pre-dinner time or dinner time or before 9 p.m. or so. But ultimately, what we have landed up is you have 24/7 food ads, and 1 hour of ad, you have 60% of the ads which are related only to food. So you can assess the way the things are being hammered in the child's brain that this is good. Then he has the mobile in his hand, and 24/7 when he is pumped with these gimmicks of the food industry, he orders the food, and 24/7 food is available at the knock of the this thing. Just phone call will give them food at 2 a.m. And most often it has been reported that these children are also ordering food at times when their parents are sleeping. Their parents are not even aware of who's coming at home, and rather posing these children another risk of child abuse. So it's a very complicated scenario, and the parents need to be alert on that aspect. They need to be having some censorship at the level of usage of mobile. Watching media before sleep, which disturbs the sleep, has to be taken care of. And the things will only improve if the sleep time is improved, sleep pattern is improved. If it is fragmented or very less, these children are prone to be developing the habits of binge eating, or the fourth meal, which we call at night, which is a culture which is being developed amongst these adolescents who are so-called modern.
Ma'am, it's not modern. Everybody will start having dinner at 10:30, ma'am. हमारे तो दादाजी 10:30 बजे खाना लगवाते हैं. कर लो आप.
So it all depends upon the family's habits. The children learn from their family, and COVID has made them
Much worse.
more closer to their family and how to learn from their family members. If you ask the children, where is your school? They'll say, my school is in my drawing room. This is the concept with which the children of today's, a toddler of today is developing in. We have to be very cautious with that. Rest, Dr. Anju ma'am will add.
Hey, ma'am. Just one comment that I think we should, a very strong case made for teaching the children to cook and the husbands to cook. More, or I should say it in the reverse order, the husbands to cook and then the children to cook, because unless they cook themselves, they will fall into the trap of processed foods and all the damage thereof.
Because the way these media, the food industry is hammering these ads into their minds, these small children, even 1-year-old child is not who is not able to differentiate between an ad and the content of the program. He will tend to learn those ads more because they are more catchy, more musical, loud, and very attractive. These children, they learn all the ads by heart more often rather than the programs. And they are brought up in that way. Even a 2-year-old child will lie down on the road if he crosses and he recognizes the logo of a food company, and he will not go ahead till he enters that food center. this is the way the food industry is working, and their targets are never stable, that they are never happy with the sales of 10 products today. Their target is 20 tomorrow. Now, whether they do it by hook or by crook and whom to influence, they know whom to influence. You influence a young, immature brain, that is, they will create much more loyal clients for them. So that is the basic thing. That is why I feel, and I have a plea that unhealthy food, whatever it is, around the globe should be legally treated as tobacco. There should be no advertising. That is the main reason why the children are falling prey to this bunch of diseases.
Right. So there are no more questions in the chat box, and I think it may be a good time to wind up. So, ma'am, this was a really brilliant talk, very enlightening. And I hope we all go home and start reading those labels now. And every time we go to the store, we should start looking at the labels, because unless we become aware ourselves, I don't think we can teach our patients that. And perhaps keep a package or two in the clinic to show people what the healthy biscuits and the healthy drinks consist of actually. And
Nothing
maybe we
is
can
healthy which is there in the packets. Everything which is requiring advertisement needs to be condemned. But that's a very huge and a very high aspiration. But we all can make a difference.
absolutely.
I think we'll call it today. And thank you so much, Rekha ma'am. I think we should all be alert consumers and teach our patients and acquaintances also about what is total fat, what is saturated fat, what is sugar, what is sodium. I think all these things are very important so that they learn not to imbalance their diets and make healthy choices. Because not only once the consumer starts making a healthy choice, the industry is bound to change, because then they will not sell. So they will also change their products to some extent. And like some things like light is not actually healthy, your biscuit light is not actually light, and if it's low fat, maybe there is more sugar in it,
Yes.
which are the things which people should understand. Low fat to hai, but it's drowning in sugar.
Yes.
These are the things we need to sit in our clinics and all the time amongst our acquaintances and teach. And I think make some changes ourselves, serve healthy food in our conferences, and also stop giving those packets, those baskets of goodies during Diwali and all that stuff, which are selling everywhere. Everybody who comes to your house brings that big basket, which is nothing but sugar and fat. So I think all that these are the habits which we Indians need to change. And I think and you're doing an excellent job, ma'am. At least you're motivating the people to do. And somewhere along the line, I think we will succeed. So thank you so much, ma'am, for taking out time for us. And thanks a lot, Anju, for chairing the session and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you for the opportunity, Poonam. We should be advocating fruit baskets.
Yes.
Basket दे दो, fruit की दे दो.
फ्रूट बास्केट दे दो या सब्जी का बास्केट दे दो, कोई बात नहीं. लेकिन वो पैकेट्स और जूसेस का बास्केट मत लाइए. That is something where
Thank you.
we need to keep telling, because now the festival season is coming and every house, whether it is tikka, whether it is Diwali, everybody will come with those baskets. So we need to change.
Thank you so much for having me here and giving me this opportunity. It was real honor for me, and appearing here again would be a dream. And I would look forward for support from the most elite group of pediatricians of the country for the NCD chapter also. I will also make an appeal for the membership so that we can have much more talented and equipped people who can help in changing the face of the nation.
So, Dr. Poonam, if we have your permission, maybe ma'am can put the membership form in the group.
Yes, ma'am. I think, yes, ma'am. Please do. Please do. So, thank you all participants, and hopefully we meet again next week. I think next week we have a central IIP program again to teach us about finances and how to avoid computer hacking and all those things. So, till we meet again next Thursday physically like this again, maybe the next to next Thursday. So, goodbye everybody. Good night. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.